Hi, and a very welcome back to all. Today, we are going to understand about the topic of alpha and beta oxidation, which are the processes by which the lipids or fats that are stored in your body gets break down to obtain energy. Right. So let us first of all start with um, understanding that we all need energy for various kind of processes, may it be working, may it be reading, may it be doing your office work, may it be any kind of activity like playing something, playing some instruments, or running, right, or walking, or traveling. Anything that you do requires energy, right? And this energy are obtained from various energy sources that are obtained from our diet that we take, right? So what are these energy sources? These are usually proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, right? These are the three main organic compounds that we take in our diet, and these becomes the energy sources. Of this, carbohydrate is usually the main energy source, because carbohydrate is something that goes into breakdown first, right? So but then proteins and fats are also broken down, and energy is obtained from these two organic compounds also, right? So when the body breaks down these large compounds, right, these large molecules, energy is obtained, right? And this energy is something that we use in our all kind of processes, that all kind of work that we do, so that we have energy to perform the various works that we do, right? So today, but our focus would be more on fats, because we are going to understand about how these fats are broken down and how energy is obtained from the stored fat in our body, right? So now let us have a brief understanding of what are fats. So fats are also a kind of energy source, and these are complex organic compounds like proteins and carbohydrates. These are also organic compounds, and these are mainly made up of two molecules. These are fatty acids and glycerols. That is, we will see later on that as breakdown of fats takes place, two substances are formed. These are fatty acids and glycerols, right? And these are highly reduced compounds, that is, they are reduced in their structure, and this helps in storing these molecules since they are reduced compounds. And one of the very important point about fats is that most energy efficient form of food are fats. So fat is something that is most energy efficient in comparison to carbohydrate and proteins. So each gram of fat that we eat, actually, that we take in our diet, gives us 9 calories. 9 calories, which is more than twice than that which we obtain from carbohydrates and proteins, right? So what amount of calories is provided by carbohydrates and proteins in comparison to the calories given by these two organic compounds? Fat is giving more than twice energy, more than twice calorie, 9 calories, right, which is more than provided by the same quantity of carbohydrate or proteins, right? And therefore fats are said to be the most energy efficient form of food. So we can obtain more energy, more energy can be made from less amount of fat, right? So, and this is the reason that for this purpose our body, our human body or animal body stores anything of excess that is present in the body as fats. So excess energy is stored as fat, right? Whatever diet you take excess is stored as fat, right? So this is the reason, because since fat are the more energy efficient form of food, the body stores it as fats, so that later on whenever the body needs energy, maybe in absence of any of the other organic compound, then at that time fats can be utilized, which is stored in our body parts, right? So we also need to know that carbohydrates and proteins are actually mobilizable energy reserves. So these are reserves that are mobilized, that are not stagnant at a place, right? But fat are for long term energy storage, and this is the reason that fats gets deposited in your body, right? So in a way it is good, but when there is so much fat, then that fat shows up in your body, right? So obviously some amount of fats has to be stored for energy storage, because whenever we go into conditions where we do not get enough food, then at that time this stored fat becomes useful in providing us energy, right? So these are the organic compounds that are stored. Actually these are not mobilized, but the carbohydrates and proteins that we take are the mobilized energy sources, right? So these usually do not get stored in your body, right? So I hope that now you understand what are fats. Now let us know that fats, the storing of fat is very important in for certain purposes, like for example in hibernating animals, right? These are bear, right? So we know that this bear, they actually live in cold environment. So these are hibernating animals because in unfavorable condition, for example very harsh winter, they have to protect themselves from that environment, and so for that these animals go into hibernation. Hibernation is a period of like a long sleep, during which these organisms do not eat, they do not drink, right? And they are in hibernation. So imagine any organism that has not eaten for so long, that is not taking any water or food, right? So that means that these organisms will be utilizing energy from the source that is stored in their body, right? So during the favorable condition, the excess gets stored in their body, and during unfavorable conditions, when they go in hibernation, that stored material is getting used up for them to survive, to obtain energy, and therefore fat is a very important thing for hibernating animals. Similarly, for migrating birds also, fats are important. Now I think you can already understand that migrating birds have to migrate long distances. They have to feel lightweight, right? And fats are actually molecules that are reduced compounds, and therefore in very less weight more energy can be stored, and therefore it becomes useful in migrating birds. Also migrating birds have to travel long distances, so sometimes they do not eat, and at that time the stored fat becomes useful as food source. Similarly, most of the seeds store energy in the form of fats, most of the seeds that we know, and that is utilized for the growth of the new seedling. So for all of these purposes fats are very important. So fats are therefore very well suited for storage function. And why? Because it allows maximum number of calories to be stored. So as I told, 1 gram of fat, we already saw that 1 gram of fat can give you 9 calories, which is twice than provided by carbohydrates or proteins. And therefore we can understand that it gives us maximum number of calories to be stored, and minimum volume and weight can be is present. So fats, therefore, since they can store they can give more calorie in less amount, and therefore obviously since these are reduced compounds, so there would be minimum volume and weight. And this is a very important point for animal motility like migrating birds, and for seed dispersal also. We know that seed has to get dispersed from one place to another. So if it is very heavy, then it is not going to get dispersed, and therefore this is an important factor for seed dispersal also. Right? Now let us first of all understand the basic of how a molecule of fat gets breakdown, and after it breaks down, what is formed. Right? So fats are broken down by hydrolysis, that is by addition of a molecule of water. So when fats are broken down, it gets hydrolyzed into glycerol and fatty acids. Right? If you remember, just a slide before, we saw that fats are made of glycerol and fatty acids. Right? So when breakdown of fats will take place, what will be formed? It will be glycerol and fatty acids, and this process is done in the presence of enzyme lipase. Right? So what happens is a triglyceride combines with water. Right? Triglyceride is a fat molecule. Right? So it combines with water and it gives diglyceride. Right? So triglyceride becomes diglyceride, and a molecule of fatty acid is removed. Right? Then the diglyceride that is present, it will again combine with water molecule, and monoglyceride will be formed and fatty acid will be formed. Right? And again that monoglyceride will combine with water, and this will lead to the formation of glycerol and fatty acid. So we can understand that when a monoglyceride gets hydrolyzed, this gives us glycerol and fatty acid. Right? So therefore it is said that fats are made up of glycerol and fatty acid. Now, but for the formation of monoglyceride, it is important that triglyceride has to get converted to diglyceride, and from diglyceride monoglyceride has to form, and during both all of these three reactions, a fatty acid is formed. Right? So the components of fat are glycerol and fatty acid, as said before. Right? Now these two processes, the formation of diglyceride and the formation of monoglyceride, takes place in cytosol. Right? And this is a reversible reaction, and the formation of glycerol and fatty acid from monoglyceride takes place in cytosol and glyoxysomes. So it happens in cytosol as well as glyoxysomes. So but this is an irreversible reaction. So okay, so this is by mistake. This is an irreversible reaction, that is, from glycerol and fatty acid monoglyceride is not going to get formed. Right? So only one arrow will come here. Right? So this is how glycerol and fatty acid is formed. Now two components are formed, two molecules are formed. So what will happen to the glycerol? Glycerol will enter the glycolytic pathway, right, where breakdown of glucose takes place to obtain energy, right? That is the process of glycolysis. Glycerol can have two fates. Glycerol can enter glycolytic pathway, or it can enter in gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is the formation of glucose from substrates other than carbohydrates, right? So glycerol is not a carbohydrate, it is a fat, right? And therefore glycerol, when gives rise to glucose, then the process is called gluconeogenesis, right? So the glycerol can have two fates. It can either enter the glycolytic pathway, which is the breakdown of glucose, or it can also enter the gluconeogenesis process, where it can lead to the formation of new glucose molecule, right? And what will happen to the fatty acids? Fatty acids are usually stored in your body, and this breaks down, and whenever needed, its breakdown is carried out by alpha and beta oxidation process, right? So this is the part that we are going to understand, that how these fatty acids that are obtained from the breakdown of fats, how these fatty acids are broken down by the process of alpha and beta oxidation, and how energy is obtained from this process, and how much energy is obtained from this process. So this is the part that we are going to understand today, right? Now, before understanding about alpha and beta oxidation, let us look into what happens to the glycerol. So now we saw that from the breakdown of fats, glycerol and fatty acid is formed. Glycerol can either enter the glycolytic pathway, or also it can move into the process of gluconeogenesis. So let us see that what happens with the glycerol. So the glycerol oxidation takes place by addition of ATP molecule, right? So this leads to the formation of glycerol 3-phosphate, because the phosphate in adenosine triphosphate has been given to glycerol. So therefore it is termed glycerol 3-phosphate, and therefore ATP will have now one molecule less, one phosphate less than the previous one, and therefore this will be adenosine diphosphate, that is there are only two phosphates, right? And so glycerol combines with ATP to give glycerol 3-phosphate plus ADP, and the enzyme responsible is a kinase enzyme. So whichever enzyme is responsible is associated with transfer of phosphorus group, then it is called the kinase enzyme, right? Now then this glycerol 3-phosphate then combines with NAD plus, right? NAD plus, if you remember, this is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. This is a coenzyme, right? We have already studied that this is a coenzyme, and vitamins are responsible for the formation of this coenzyme, right? Now which vitamin is responsible, you can I think you already know. You can go back to our chapters where we have studied about vitamins, and you can just remember right now that NAD is a coenzyme which is formed from vitamin, right? So this glycerol 3-phosphate in presence of this coenzyme, with the help of this coenzyme NAD plus, in presence of enzyme dehydrogenase, gives us dihydroxyacetone phosphate. This is also called DHAP, and NADH and H plus is formed, right? So this DHAP then gets converted to phosphoglyceraldehyde PGAL. These two are isomers, and therefore this happens in the presence of enzyme isomerase, right? So this dihydroxyacetone phosphate, which is also called DHAP, gets isomerized to its isomer phosphoglyceraldehyde, which is PGAL, right? And this PgAl can then get converted to pyruvate, and this pyruvate can enter this pyruvate actually gets converted to acetyl CoA, and then acetyl CoA enters into the what we call the glycolytic pathway, right? So this is how this glycerol can enter the glycolytic pathway, and this process yields 2 ATP molecules, right? So in this process 2 NADH is formed, and this gives us in total 6 ATP, because 1 NADH molecule can give us 3 ATP, right? And therefore since 2 NADH molecules are there, it will give us 6 molecules of ATP. Now this glycerol, as I told, can also have another fate where it can get utilized in gluconeogenesis, and gluconeogenesis is the formation of new glucose molecules, but not from carbohydrates, rather than substrates other than carbohydrates, which are fats or proteins, right? And therefore this glycerol enters the process of gluconeogenesis also, and this happens by a reverse reaction with the help of DHAP, right? So 2 fates I told you. Glycerol can either go in glycolytic pathway, or it can also enter the gluconeogenesis process for the formation of new glucose, right? Now up till now we saw that how fats gets broken down to form glycerol and fatty acid. What happens to the glycerol that is formed? It can have 2 fates. It can enter the glycolytic pathway, or it can enter the gluconeogenesis process, right? And the fatty acid that is formed, now we will see that these fatty acids gets utilized in the process of breaking down of fats by alpha and beta oxidation. So now we will look into what is the fate of the fatty acids. So these fatty acids are usually broken down by 2 main processes. These are beta oxidation and alpha oxidation, right? So first of all we will understand what is beta oxidation, because after understanding beta oxidation we can relate what is alpha oxidation, and beta oxidation is quite a long process, whereas alpha oxidation is a small process. So let us first understand that what is beta oxidation, right? So this is an important point to note, that all fatty acids have an even number of carbon atom. So may it be any kind of fatty acid, the number of carbon atom always remains even, which means there could be either 2 carbon atom, or 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 12, and like that, right? So it will always have even number of carbon atom. And fatty acids are therefore degraded or broken down by subtraction of 2 carbon fragments. So every time from a fatty acid molecule 2 carbon fragment will be removed, that is 2 carbons will be removed, and this will lead to the shortening of the chain. We will look into it in more detail. And this, the process by which the subtraction of 2 carbon fragments takes place from a fatty acid molecule is called beta oxidation. So this happens under the scheme of beta oxidation, and this was confirmed by scientist Knoop. So why is it called beta oxidation? Because the beta carbon of the fatty acid is oxidized to yield beta keto acid, right? So for that you need to know that what is beta carbon. So for example, this is a fatty acid molecule. This is R is an alkyl group, that is the alkyl group can keep on varying depending upon the fatty acids, right? This is the carboxylic group actually, but here CoA is attached in this place. Usually carboxylic acid, if it is a pure fatty acid, then this would be a carboxyl group, C double bond O OH or COOH, right? That is called carboxyl group. But here CoA is attached. Well, that is not the point right now. What I need to make you understand is that what is alpha and beta carbon. So see, this is the functional group, right, which is carboxyl group actually here, and the carbon that is present, the very first carbon that is present to the left of the carboxyl group, the functional group, is called the alpha carbon. So this is the alpha carbon, and the second carbon, right, second carbon from the functional group is called the beta carbon, right? So oxidation takes place at this beta carbon, and therefore it is called beta oxidation, right? So I think by now you can also relate that alpha oxidation would be oxidation of alpha carbon, right? So therefore this process is called beta oxidation. Beta carbon is something that is present after the alpha carbon, and from the functional group it is the second carbon atom, and therefore it is called beta carbon. And the oxidation that takes place at beta carbon, that is beta carbon gets oxidized, and therefore this process is called beta oxidation, right? Now this forms a 2 carbon fragment, which is acetic acid. We are going to understand the whole process in more detail, where you will understand that as the 2 carbon fragment gets removed, later on at the end the 2 carbon fragment that remains is the acetic acid, right? And the new fatty acid chain that would be formed would be 2 carbon shorter. Obviously when 2 carbons are removed, the new fatty acid that would be formed would be 2 carbons shorter, and acetyl CoA is formed actually by oxidation of beta carbon, right? So therefore this is called beta oxidation, right? Now beta oxidation has a very first step, which is called activation step, right? Why is it called activation step? Because the fatty acids that are stored in your body cannot directly be utilized to produce energy. So this fatty acid has to first get activated, because it is not in active form, it is in stored form. So the fatty acids that is present has to get activated by the process of which is the first step, which is your activation step. So we will see that how these fatty acids that are stored in your body gets activated. So therefore the first step is activation, where the fatty acid must be first activated. So this is activated by getting joined to the SH group of coenzyme A, right? Now please recall that we had studied in vitamins that pantothenic acid, which is vitamin B5, is responsible for the formation of coenzyme A. This is a coenzyme, right? And coenzyme A, we had seen that is very important for lipids breakdown, for alpha and beta oxidation, for fatty acids breakdown. So here comes the coenzyme A, which we studied in vitamin, having function in lipid and fat metabolism. So this is the main step, where the fatty acid gets activated by getting joined to the SH group of coenzyme A, right? So coenzyme A is the one that activates the fatty acid. So this is a condensation process, right? For those who do not know what is a condensation process, it is a reaction in which 2 or more molecules combine to form a larger molecule. So when 2 molecules combine to form a large molecule, it will be called as condensation. So with the simultaneous loss of a small molecule such as water or methanol, and when these molecules will combine, obviously something will get lost, right? And that would be small molecules like water or methanol, right? And this reaction activation step is coupled with hydrolysis of ATP to AMP, and this process, the activation step, requires ATP, requires energy, which then gets converted to AMP and PPI, right? So let us look into the reaction. See, this is a fatty acid, right? This is a ionized form of fatty acid. This is the alkyl group. Here there are two alkyl groups present, CH2 CH2, and this is the carboxyl group, right? This is the ionized form of carboxyl group. In place of this we can also write COOH, right? COOH, that is carboxyl group. So there could be n number of alkyl groups present, and therefore here it is written R. This is general formula for fatty acid. So this is the fatty acid. This combines with CoA and ATP, right? And this gives us fatty acyl CoA. See what is happening, that this carboxyl group gets removed, right? And in that place S CoA is attached. This is the S group of CoA. So CoA gets attached to this part of fatty acid, and therefore this is called as fatty acyl CoA, right? Because a CoA groups attached to this fatty acid. So now this becomes fatty acyl CoA. This is the activated form of fatty acid, and this also gives out AMP and PPI, because in this process energy is utilized. This happens in the process of enzyme acyl CoA synthetase, right? So the very first step is the activation step, where the fatty acid, right, stored in your body has to become active, and this is activated by coenzyme A with the help of energy, which is ATP. So this gets converted to fatty acyl CoA and gives us AMP and PPI, right? So now what we have with us is as fatty acyl CoA, which is the activated form of fatty acid, right? Now what we need to understand is that this fatty acyl CoA is present in cytoplasm, right? So by now the fatty acyl CoA is seen in cytoplasm, but we will see that this fatty acyl CoA has to move from cytoplasm for the beta oxidation process. So now to break down the fatty acids, which happens by beta oxidation, we need enzymes, right? And these enzymes are present only in the mitochondrial matrix. So we know that this is a mitochondria. The inner part is called the mitochondrial matrix, and this is the outer and inner membrane. This is outer membrane, this is inner membrane, right? So the enzymes required for the breakdown of fatty acids are present in the mitochondrial matrix, and therefore the fatty acyl CoA that is formed in cytoplasm, from the cytoplasm this fatty acyl CoA has to reach over here into the mitochondrial matrix where the enzymes are present, right? And this is done by a enzymatic complex of carnitine, right? So this fatty acyl CoA reaches the mitochondrial matrix with the help of enzyme carnitine. We are going to understand that how carnitine helps in this transfer, this travel of fatty acyl CoA from cytoplasm into the mitochondria, right? So see, this is the process. Let us see that by now we saw that fatty acid with the help of ATP, right, and CoA gives us fatty acyl CoA, right? Fatty acid and this happens with the help of enzyme. This is the enzyme complex acyl CoA synthetase. Just remember the previous reaction that we saw. It is this reaction where fatty acid combines with CoA. This is the activation step where ATP is utilized and AMP is formed, and we get fatty acyl CoA. So we also need to know that mitochondria has outer and inner membrane. So this is the outer mitochondrial membrane, this is the inner mitochondrial membrane, and this is the mitochondrial matrix, the inside part of the mitochondria. Right, now see, we saw by now that fatty acyl CoA is formed from fatty acid. That was the activation step. Now what happens, that this fatty acyl CoA, it combines with carnitine. So this is carnitine enzyme. Carnitine is a big complex of enzyme that helps in this transfer. So fatty acyl CoA combines with carnitine. So this is and gives us fatty acyl carnitine. This happens in the presence of carnitine acyl transferase 1. See here the reaction, that the fatty acyl CoA combines with enzyme carnitine in presence of carnitine acyl transferase 1, gives us fatty acyl carnitine plus CoA SH is removed. So the CoA is removed from this part, right, and here gets attached the carnitine enzyme, right. So therefore this becomes fatty acyl carnitine, right. We need to know that CoA is also called as CoA SH and CoA is also called as S-CoA. So either way you write, it is the same thing, it is CoA, which is coenzyme A, right. So this is the first reaction where the fatty acyl formed by the activation step combines with carnitine in presence of enzyme carnitine acyl transferase, gives us fatty acyl carnitine. Now this takes place between the outer and inner membrane of the mitochondria, right. Now this fatty acyl carnitine that is formed gets into the mitochondrial matrix, right, but this fatty acyl carnitine now has to get converted back, it has to convert back to fatty acyl CoA for its breakdown. So what will happen, that is this fatty acyl carnitine will combine with CoA SH again. This will happen in the presence of carnitine acyl transferase 2. This will give out fatty acyl CoA, that is in place of carnitine again CoA will get attached, and in this process the carnitine that is removed moves out of the mitochondrial matrix to again continue the same process, right. So this is the second reaction where the fatty acyl carnitine that is formed here in between the outer and inner mitochondrial matrix, it moves into the mitochondrial matrix and combines with CoA SH again to get converted to fatty acyl CoA, where the carnitine is removed with CoA. So we get fatty acyl CoA and carnitine gets removed and it goes into back to the place where it belongs, and again combines with another fatty acyl CoA and continues the process. See, this is a reversible reaction, that is fatty acyl CoA combines with carnitine and forms fatty acyl carnitine and CoA is removed. Then again this fatty acyl carnitine combines with CoA in presence of enzyme carnitine acyl transferase, and fatty acyl CoA is formed and carnitine is removed. So this process is mainly for the entry of fatty acid from the cytoplasm into the mitochondrial matrix, and this is a very important step because this keeps the cytosolic and intramitochondrial pools of CoA separate. So cytosolic and mitochondrial pools of CoA are kept separate in this way because both of the CoA, that is the CoA in cytoplasm and CoA in mitochondria, have different functions. So this process is important. So don't get scared with this formula. This is easy reaction. It is just a reversible reaction. See here, fatty acyl CoA combines with carnitine and you get fatty acyl carnitine plus CoA. The same thing you write this side, then it becomes the another reaction. Only you have to remember is the what we call the enzyme name. That is also easy. First reaction is catalyzed by carnitine acyl transferase 1 and second reaction is catalyzed by carnitine acyl transferase 2. That is it. So by now we saw that fatty acid gets activated to form fatty acyl CoA, and this fatty acyl CoA then enters the mitochondrial matrix with the help of a complex of enzyme carnitine, and again fatty acyl CoA is formed which reaches the mitochondrial matrix where the enzymes of beta oxidation is present, and so now the process of beta oxidation can start with the fatty acyl CoA that has entered the mitochondrial matrix, right? So now we have already moved into the mitochondrial matrix. The fatty acyl CoA has entered the mitochondrial matrix and now therefore the oxidation will take place. See, there are two stages, stage 1 and stage 2. So stage 1 is the oxidative removal of successive 2 carbon units. So as I told, from any fatty acid 2 carbon units will be removed, and in that way the chain will become shorter and shorter. And this removal starts from the carboxyl end. We know that the fatty acid have a carboxyl group present, and therefore the removal of carbon atom starts from the end from where the carboxyl group is present. The process keeps repeating through a set of enzymes. So with the help of enzymes, this process keeps on repeating. So what is removed as 2 carbon unit? It is the acetyl CoA molecule. 2 carbon acetyl units are removed as acetyl CoA. We are going to understand this process where you will understand each of these points, and the end product that is formed by beta oxidation, that is 2 carbon fragments, will get removed in every cycle, and lastly what removes would be again a 2 carbon fragment only. So this stage 1 will keep on continuing until the fatty acid gets reduced to a 2 carbon acetyl CoA, to a 2 carbon fragment only. So say for example a fatty acid is having 20 carbon atoms, right? A fatty acid is of 20 carbon atoms. So what will happen, that 2 carbons will get removed in every cycle, and in this way the cycle will keep on continuing until that 20 carbon fatty acid will have only 2 carbons remaining. That is the end of stage 1, right? Now what is stage 2? Stage 2 is that whatever acetyl CoA is produced by fatty acid breakdown, that gets oxidized to CO2 and water via the tricarboxylic acid cycle. So stage 1 is the main process of beta oxidation. At the end of beta oxidation we get acetyl CoA, and this acetyl CoA which is produced, right, this 2 carbon fragment that is produced then enters the tricarboxylic acid cycle, TCA cycle, right, where it gets completely oxidized to CO2 and water. So what we are going to understand in this lecture is only this process, the stage 1, which is the beta oxidation. Tricarboxylic acid cycle is a separate process, that is not beta oxidation, right? Tricarboxylic acid cycle is the further breakdown of acetyl CoA, but this is the only beta oxidation part, and we are going to understand that. And then we need to know that later on this 2 carbon fragment gets utilized in stage 2, which is the tricarboxylic acid cycle, where it gets oxidized, right? So we are going to understand about stage 1, and in both of these stages, whatever energy is released, that is conserved as ATP. So when whatever breakdown takes place during this process, and whatever energy is released by breakdown, that energy is conserved as ATP, and this ATP becomes useful to us whenever we work, right? So let us start understanding the stage 1. Now the stage 1 has 4 main steps, right? So let us understand each step one by one. So first step is the dehydrogenation step, right? So here the fatty acyl CoA is dehydrogenated. Dehydrogenated means a hydrogen is removed, and this is done by a family of FAD linked enzyme. Please recall that FAD is a coenzyme, and a vitamin is responsible for the formation of FAD, right? So this dehydrogenation of fatty acyl CoA is done by a family of FAD linked enzymes, and what is formed is a beta enoyl CoA complex. The enzyme which is responsible for this process is fatty acyl CoA dehydrogenase. Since it is a dehydrogenation process, it is the dehydrogenase enzyme, and the substrate is fatty acyl CoA, and therefore the enzyme name fatty acyl CoA dehydrogenase, right? Now here FAD acts as a prostatic group. What is prostatic group? Prostatic group means something that is not protein, but it helps protein, it helps enzyme in the process. So FAD is a coenzyme, though it is not a protein, right? But it will help the enzyme in carrying out the reaction. So FAD is mainly a prostatic group, and it is an electron acceptor. So FAD is the one that will accept the electron in the oxidation process. So let us look into the reaction. So this is a fatty acyl CoA. As I told, the carbon just after the functional group is called alpha carbon, and after the alpha carbon, the carbon that is present is beta carbon, that is the second carbon from the functional group, right? So this is a fatty acyl CoA. This, in presence of FAD and fatty acyl CoA dehydrogenase enzyme, will give us beta enoyl CoA, right? See, and during this process FADH2 is removed. During this process, this whole beta oxidation, you need to focus these 2 carbon atoms only, right? This is the common, this is CoA group combined, and this is alkyl group, but whatever is happening in these 2 carbons, right? See what has happened. This is a dehydrogenation process, that is H2 will get removed. So see what is happening. From alpha and beta carbon, 1,1H has removed, right? And this leads to the formation of beta enoyl CoA, where alpha and beta carbon now only have 1 hydrogen atom, and therefore the formation of double bond, because carbon should have 4 valency. So to compensate that 4 valency, 1 is here, 1 is the hydrogen atom, but where is the rest 2 valency? It is here in the double bond, the 2 bonds, right? So 1, 2, and the 2 and the double bond satisfy the 4 valency of carbon, and therefore if you see here in the alpha beta carbon, there is a double bond formation between the alpha and beta. This is the first process, right? and FAD is gets converted to FADH2, right? This happens in presence of enzyme fatty acyl CoA dehydrogenase, right? So now we move towards step 2, which is hydration. So first step was dehydrogenation. Now second step is hydration. Hydration is a process where water gets added. Water is added, right? So across the double bond. So we saw that double bond is formed between the alpha and beta carbon. This double bond is broken down. This double bond is hydrated, right, by the addition of water. So therefore it generates beta hydroxy fatty acyl CoA, right? This is the product that is formed, and that means that OH group, hydroxyl group, is added on beta carbon, right? So let us look into the reaction. So this is what we got from the first reaction. This is beta enoyl CoA. This is we obtained by dehydrogenation of fatty acyl CoA. So this beta enoyl CoA now combines with a water molecule and gives us enoyl CoA, in the presence of enzyme enoyl CoA hydratase, since it is a hydration reaction and it is taking place with enoyl CoA, therefore it is called enoyl CoA hydratase. This gives us beta hydroxy fatty acyl CoA. See what is happening. Again, take a look in the alpha and beta carbon. We are adding a water molecule, so it has a OH group and it has an H. So OH gets added here in the beta carbon and H gets added here in the alpha carbon, and in this way the water molecule is added in the whole beta enoyl CoA. So therefore now there is no need of double bond, the valence is satisfied, right? And this is beta hydroxyl fatty acyl CoA, because in the beta carbon hydroxyl group is present, right? And therefore it is called beta hydroxyl fatty acyl CoA, right? Now we move towards step 3, which is dehydrogenation 3, right? So step 3 is again a dehydrogenation process where the beta hydroxy fatty acyl CoA that is formed by hydration gets oxidized. Now this is done by another coenzyme, which is NAD. Remember that in the first step FAD was acting and here NAD is the enzyme. NAD is again a coenzyme, right? Here the electron acceptor is NAD. This forms a beta keto acyl CoA complex. So let us look into the reaction. This is what we got from step 2, right? This is a beta hydroxy fatty acyl CoA. This combines with NAD. In presence of enzyme dehydrogenase, this gives us beta keto acyl CoA, right? So dehydrogenase, in the presence of enzyme dehydrogenase, it gives us beta keto acyl CoA. Why is it called beta keto acyl CoA, or it can also be called beta keto fatty acyl CoA? Why? Because in the beta carbon keto group is present, right? So this is a dehydrogenation process. Again H is removed. See, from here H is removed, right? Take a look in this 2 carbon. From OH, H is removed, so only O is present, and therefore double bond came into picture, and rest is as it is. So this is a beta keto fatty acyl CoA. This is a ketone group now, and therefore it is called beta keto fatty acyl CoA or beta keto acyl CoA, and NAD gets converted to NADH or NADH2, right? And then the step 4 is the cleavage between alpha and beta carbon. So here the compound is obtained from The compound now that we obtain from step 3 is actually an unstable compound, so it has to get converted to a stable form. So the bond between alpha and beta carbon is cleaved in this step. So by cleavage we get a new fatty acyl CoA complex, which is actually 2 carbon shorter than the original molecule. So let us have a look into what is happening. This is your beta ketoacyl CoA that is formed from step 3, right? So this combines with a CoA molecule, right, and this gives us shortened fatty acyl chain. See what is happening now. The chain has shortened by 2 carbon atoms. So now you can see that 2 carbons have been removed, right? And what the 2 carbon atoms have been removed as an acetyl CoA, right? So the 2 carbon atoms that is removed are this. Take a look over here. This whole part gets removed actually. So actually the 2 carbon atoms get removed, and since 2 carbon atom is removed and an S CoA is removed, so it is acetyl CoA. But this whole gets removed, but we are adding again a CoA, and this gives us shortened fatty acyl CoA. So the CoA gets added here. The CoA that was present, that goes out as acetyl CoA, and 2 carbon atoms are removed. So what we get is a shortened fatty acid chain. So here there were 3 carbons. Now here there is only 1 carbon because 2 has been removed. So every time 2 carbon will be removed in this way as acetyl CoA. So this stage 1 is of 4 steps, and like this 4 steps keeps on repeating until the fatty acids gets completely shortened into 2 carbon fragment, right? Now we will look into the whole process as a cycle, right? So this is the cycle that takes place. Now let us understand this process as a whole cycle, right? So this is your fatty acyl CoA, right? This fatty acyl CoA gets activated in the cytoplasm. That is what we saw. With the help of CoA-SH, it gets activated and ATP gets converted to AMP. So we get fatty acyl CoA, right? This fatty acyl CoA has now has to transfer or travel into the mitochondrial matrix. So this is the cytoplasm and this is the mitochondrial matrix. So this is the fatty acyl CoA that has traveled into the mitochondrial matrix. This is your mitochondria outside, the border, right? So this has entered the mitochondrial matrix, right? And this has happened with the help of enzyme complex carnitine. That process we already saw, right? Now this fatty acyl CoA, the very first step for us was the dehydrogenation step, right? So this fatty acyl CoA with the help of FAD gets converted to beta enoyl CoA, where we saw that the alpha and beta carbon atom, between that a double bond is formed, right? This happens with FAD because here dehydrogenation is taking place, so one hydrogen atom gets removed, establishing the double bond. Now the second step was hydration, right? So water molecule gets added. This leads to formation of beta hydroxyl fatty acyl CoA. So beta carbon has now hydroxyl group. Now the third step is also a dehydrogenation, where NAD coenzyme gets converted to NADH and a hydrogen is removed. So here there is ketone group formation at the beta carbon. This is called beta ketoacyl CoA. And now in the fourth step there is cleavage between the alpha and beta carbon, and also a CoA is added. So this CoA leads to the formation of acetyl CoA, where two carbon atoms gets removed from the molecule, the previous fatty acyl CoA, and acetyl CoA gets removed, and another fatty acyl CoA is formed, which is 2 carbon shorter. So what we get is an acetyl CoA and an fatty acyl CoA which is 2 carbons shorter, right? So this is the whole stage 1, and this fatty acyl CoA will again re-enter the cycle, and these 4 steps will keep on continuing till this fatty acyl CoA is completely shorter by 2. So completely shorter in the sense that only 2 carbon fragments remains at the end. So this is the whole process. Now we can see that each cycle produces, this is one cycle, right? So each cycle produces one FADH2. We have an FADH2 in reaction 1, one NADH in reaction 3, one acetyl CoA is formed, right, and one fatty acyl CoA is formed, which is 2 carbon shorter. So we need to know that one FADH2 can give us 2 ATP. So in a cycle we get 2 ATP from one FADH2, and one NADH can give us 3 ATPs. So in total we are getting 5 ATPs from FADH2 and NADH2. So one FADH2 can give 2 and one NADH2 can give 3, right? And if this cycle keeps on continuing, the ATP keeps on increasing, right? So now we understand this with the example of octanoic acid, right? Octanoic acid is a fatty acid that is of 8 carbon atoms, right? So let us see how this process goes with octanoic acid. So this is an 8 carbon. This formula is very easy. See, only you have to write CH3 here, and the rest carbons would be CH2, and then at the last there would be carboxyl group. So you have to satisfy the 8 carbon atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Of these 8, one is the carboxyl group and one is the methyl group. The rest is the alkyl group, CH2, CH2, right? So focus on this alpha and beta carbon. So what was the first step? Activation step. CoA SH is added. So you can see now that the carboxyl group gets replaced by the CoA SH, right? And the step 1 was dehydrogenation, FAD to FADH2. This leads to removal of hydrogen. So one hydrogen is removed, leading to double bond formation, right? Then in step 2, water gets added. So hydroxyl group gets added in the beta carbon, right? And then the next step is again dehydrogenation step, where NAD is used, right? And this leads to double bond formation at beta carbon due to removal of hydrogen. So ketone group is formed. Now the fourth step is where CoA SH is added, which removes the acetyl CoA, and this is the new fatty acyl CoA, which is 6 carbon shorter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, right? So this is a new fatty acyl CoA. Now see, this is one cycle, up to this, right? Now this fatty acyl CoA will again follow the same cycle. So I have taken that whole cycle in one process, where we are adding water, where water is added, where FADH2 is formed, where NADH is formed, and acetyl CoA is removed, leading to the formation of a 4 carbon fatty acyl CoA. And the next cycle will again, by the same process, give us 2 carbon fatty acyl CoA. See, now there is only 2 carbon remaining from 8 carbons. So this is the end product of beta oxidation, and now the 2 carbon will move into TCA cycle, which is stage 2. But we are not going to understand stage 2. We are only right now dealing with beta oxidation. So this is beta oxidation of octanoic acid, which is 8 carbon. So just make it clear that this is cycle A. This similar cycle proceeds in cycle 2, but this I have written in short, right? And this gives us 4 carbon, and this again goes by the same cycle, and then 2 carbon gets removed, and this gives us acetyl CoA 2 carbon. So at the end, what we will have 2 acetyl CoAs actually, this that is formed and the one that is removed, right? So if you see in this octanoic acid reaction, we are getting 1 acetyl CoA, 2 acetyl CoA, 3 acetyl CoA, and at the end 4 acetyl CoA. So the total gain is 4 acetyl CoAs, and since there are 3 cycles, so we will get 3 FADH2 and 3 NADH2, right? So this 1 FADH2 and this 2, this 3, and then this 1 NADH, this 2 and this 3, right? So in that way we will get 3 FADH2 and 3 NADH2. 3 FADH2 will give us since we know that 1 FADH2 is give us 2 ATP, so 3 will give us 2 into 3 ATPs, that is 6 ATPs, and 1 NADH gives us 3 ATPs. So like that we are getting 3 NADH, which means that we will get 3 into 3, that is 9 ATPs. So total we are getting 6 ATP from FAD and 9 ATP from NAD, and plus we are getting 4 acetyl CoA molecules, right? So now you can understand that how ATP is produced by beta oxidation. Now similarly, there is a fatty acid which is called palmitoyl CoA, right? Palmitoyl CoA is a big fatty acid, right? Palmitoyl CoA or palmitic acid is a 16 carbon fatty acid, right? So palmitic acid is a fatty acid which is 16 carbon long. So this will get activated to form palmitoyl CoA, right? So now we can calculate by ourselves that how much FAD will be used, how much NAD will be used, right? So palmitic acid will have 7 repeating cycles. We saw that in octanoic acid, which was 8 carbon fatty acid, there were 3 cycles. So in palmitic acid there will be 7 repeating cycles. So this will have 7 repeating cycles. So how we will calculate that? Since palmitic acid is a 16 carbon fatty acid, that means that in every cycle 2 carbon gets removed. So that means that in one cycle 2 carbon will removed, leading to 14 carbon, then to 12 carbon, then 10 carbon, then 8 carbon, then 6 carbon, then 4 carbon, and lastly 2 carbon will be left. So in that way if you calculate, you can see that there would be 7 repeating cycles. So 7 cycles, 7 passes will be there, and therefore we can then calculate that since there would be 7 cycles, we will use 7 CoA, there would be 7 FAD that will be used, 7 water molecule will be used, and 7 NAD will be used. This is a total of all the 4 steps, right? And what we will get 8 acetyl CoAs, right? How 8? 7 from 7 acetyl CoA that are removed, and 1 acetyl CoA that remains at the end as a product, right? So in that way we will get 8 acetyl CoAs, 7 FADH2 and 7 NADH. So if we go to calculate the amount of ATP energy that is produced, so 7 FADH2 and 7 NADH2 and 8 acetyl CoA are formed. This is what we get from palmitic acid beta oxidation. So 7 FADH2, as we know that 1 FADH2 will give us 2 ATP, so we multiply 7 into 2. NADH2 gives 3 ATP, so we multiply 7 into 3, right? This I explain later. Let us just look into this two first. So 7 into 2, that is 1 FADH2 gives 2 ATP, so 7 will give 14 ATP. 1 NHDH2 gives 3 ATP, so 7 will give 7 into 3, that is 21 ATP. And 8 acetyl CoA are formed. We need to know that this acetyl CoA actually goes into the TCA cycle, right? And 8 acetyl CoA goes into TCA cycle, giving us 1 acetyl CoA can give us 12 ATP in one TCA cycle, and therefore we will have 96 ATPs produced from 8 acetyl CoA. You multiply 8 into 12, what you will get is 96 ATP, right? So what happens to the acetyl CoA that is produced? That goes into the TCA cycle. TCA cycle is also a ATP producing process, and from 1 acetyl CoA the TCA cycle yields 12 ATP, and in that way we get 8 into 12, that is 96 ATP, right? So if I go to make a total of this, what I will get is 131 ATP, 14 plus 21 plus 96. So total of 131 ATP is formed from the beta oxidation of along with TCA cycle of palmitic acid, right? So please note that the maximum number of ATP that we are noticing is coming from the tricarboxylic acid cycle, that is 3/4 ATP is produced by TCA cycle, and this makes us understand the dominant role of TCA cycle as an energy producing process. Obviously beta oxidation gives us ATP, but then later on TCA cycle is the one which gives us maximum energy, right? So I hope that this is clear with you. We saw two examples. We saw octanoic acid and we also saw the example of palmitic acid. If you have any doubt in this, you can always ask me. Now let us know something about ketone bodies which is associated with beta oxidation process. So very interesting thing, when you fast, right, whenever fast is done, so what happens is that the fatty acid level in your blood increase. Why this happen? See, because when you fast, you are actually not taking much food. You are avoiding carbohydrates, you are avoiding the required food, and therefore your body is not having enough of carbohydrates to utilize in ATP in energy process, right? So what your body will do? Your body will start utilizing the stored fatty acid, and this will lead to the activation of fatty acid, and therefore your fatty acid level in your blood will increase while fasting, right? Because your level of glucose has decreased because you are not taking it. Now as fatty acid level is increasing, that means that your body is utilizing fatty acid as an energy source. That means that beta oxidation is taking place in your body and in liver. By now we know that beta oxidation end product is acetyl CoA. So acetyl CoA starts accumulating in your liver, right? There would be so much of acetyl CoA formed because beta oxidation will take place. But this acetyl CoA cannot be oxidized in TCA. So what happens is that in diet you avoid all kind of food, and you move into food that are less in carbohydrates or fats, or sometimes even you don't take food, right? So in liver, this acetyl CoA that has accumulated cannot get oxidized to TCA, so there would be so much of acetyl CoA present. So since there is so many acetyl CoA present, so every two acetyl CoA will combine and lead to the formation of a beta keto acid called acetoacetate. two acetyl CoA will combine. So this is a condensation process. See, two molecules combine, leading to formation of acetoacetate. And this acetoacetate can later on get converted to hydroxybutyrate and acetone. Right? Acetoacetate gets converted to hydroxybutyrate and acetone. And these three bodies, these three things, acetoacetate along with hydroxybutyrate and acetone, are called ketone bodies. All of these three together are called ketone bodies, right? Because they have keto group in their formula, in their structure, right? So either acetoacetate may be present, either all of these three might be present. So that is, these are called ketone bodies. Now these are polar bodies and these are soluble in water. So these bodies can solubilize in water. So when you fast, sometimes there is high concentration of ketone bodies in blood. Then that high concentration of ketone body in blood is called ketonemia. Right? Then high concentration of the same ketone bodies in urine, if it is there, then it is called ketonuria. Now both of this, when happens in your body, ketonemia, that is high concentration of ketone in blood, and ketonuria, that is high concentration of ketone bodies in urine, this together, this condition together is called ketosis. Right? And this ketosis is though mildly damaging to normal individuals. This usually do not cause damage to normal individuals, but it is actually dangerous to diabetics, where ketosis leads to altering the blood pH, which is also called ketoacidosis. Right? So ketone bodies happens when you do fasting, leading to an increased fatty acid level, increased beta oxidation, increased acetyl CoA level. So acetyl CoA is combined, leading to acetoacetate formation, hydroxybutyrate or acetone formation, and these are together called ketone bodies. Now when these ketone bodies are high in your blood, it is called ketonemia. High in your urine, then it is called ketonuria. And both of these when present in your body, that is both of this condition when present in your body, then it is called ketosis. Ketosis is though not much problem in normal individuals. Normal individuals will actually deal with it, but this is dangerous to diabetics as it alters the blood pH. Now let us have a look into how ketone bodies can be harmful to diabetics. So we know that what happens in diabetic people, they will not have insulin. They do not have insulin. And what is the work of insulin? Insulin's work is to signal the uptake of glucose and use it for energy. So insulin actually signals the body that take up the glucose and use it for energy. Now imagine that diabetics do not have insulin, they do not produce insulin, and so they do not get this signal. So as they do not get this signal, they are not going to use up glucose. So what will happen? The glucose will remain trapped in the body. It will not break down. It will not be used for energy. Right? And this is the reason why they avoid sweet, because they already have so much glucose in their body. So this could be harmful. Now since they do not have insulin, the signal is not received, leading to the trapping of glucose in the blood. Right? So as the body is not able to utilize carbohydrate as an energy, the body will start utilizing fatty acid for energy. So therefore this will lead to the formation of ketone bodies. Now ketone bodies can only be utilized in energy formation if proper intermediaries are present. What are intermediaries? Intermediaries are compounds that are formed in the middle of the process. Right? So intermediaries are required if ketone bodies has to be used as an energy source. But we need to note that these intermediaries are obtained only from the breakdown of glucose. Right? Now in diabetics this breakdown of glucose is itself not happening, then how intermediaries will be formed? Because we know that the diabetics are not getting signal for breakdown of glucose. As they are not getting signal, glucose is getting trapped, and this is leading to fatty acid utilization, leading to ketone bodies formation. But ketone bodies needs intermediaries, and these intermediaries are only obtained by breakdown of glucose, right? And since breakdown of glucose is not taking place, intermediaries will not be formed, and this means that intermediaries are not available, which means that ketone bodies also cannot be utilized for energy. So ketone bodies will not be utilized for energy because they do not get intermediaries. So as intermediaries are not available, ketone bodies cannot be utilized in energy formation. So again, high level of ketone bodies are formed in diabetics, and this is called ketoacidosis, where the pH level is altered greatly, and this is dangerous for diabetic people, right? Because nothing is getting utilized for energy. So this is about beta oxidation, and now we move towards alpha oxidation. This was first discovered by Newcomb and Stumpf. We need to know that this is an alternative mechanism. This is not the main mechanism of fatty acid breakdown. The main mechanism of fatty acid breakdown is only beta oxidation, right? But this is an alternative mechanism. Why? Because there are certain fatty acids which have in their beta carbon methylation, right? See, this is alpha carbon, this is beta carbon, but the beta carbon is methylated, which means that there is branching present. So when branching is present in beta carbon, so beta oxidation cannot happen. So in such cases, alpha oxidation take place because the fatty acids are branched, the chain is branched, right? So therefore this is an alternative mechanism. So in this method, long chain fatty acid is gradually broken down until it is reduced to 12 carbon atom. So in this method, very long fatty acids are broken down until that fatty acid is broken down up to 12 carbon atom. So actually fatty acid less than 13 carbon atoms are not affected by this process, right? So what is the work of alpha oxidation? It will only reduce up to 12 carbon atom, right? So obviously it will only utilize very large fatty acids. Those fatty acids that are already less than 13, that is not going to take place with alpha oxidation because those are not long fatty acids. So one complete alpha oxidation results in elimination of one carbon atom in the form of CO2. So what is happening in alpha oxidation? The alpha carbon gets oxidized, and at a time only one carbon is removed. In beta oxidation, at a time two carbons were removed, and in here one carbon atom is removed in the form of carbon dioxide. So this is oxidation of alpha carbon atom, and hence the name alpha oxidation. So chain is shortened by one carbon atom. So in every cycle only one carbon atom will be reduced, and in this way the fatty acid chain will reduce. So the steps in alpha oxidation are two steps. This is decarboxylation step and oxidation step. Let us look into these two steps in a bit more detail. Decarboxylation of fatty acids, right, which means that in here the product formed is aldehyde and CO2. So that is decarboxylation, that is removal of one carbon atom takes place, and the new fatty acid is formed would be one carbon less than the original fatty acid. This is catalyzed by a peroxidase enzyme. So for example, this is your fatty acid RCH2, N means that N number of CH2, right, and this is your carboxyl group. This in presence of fatty acid peroxidase. As I told, the peroxidase enzyme is there, it is acting upon fatty acid, therefore fatty acid peroxidase gives us an aldehyde. See what is happening. CH2 is removed and COOH group is removed. This is decarboxylation, that is carboxyl group is removed and leading to addition of aldehyde group. So CHO is aldehyde group, so this whole is removed and this is leading to the formation of aldehyde by addition of CHO group, and the rest is removed as carbon dioxide. So this is decarboxylation of fatty acid. Now second is oxidation. What is oxidation? Where the aldehyde form now gets oxidized. The oxidation is always done by enzyme dehydrogenase. So new fatty acid will be formed, which would be one carbon short. So this is the aldehyde that we obtained in the first reaction. So NAD coenzyme will help the aldehyde dehydrogenase enzyme, leading to formation of the new fatty acids. See, what we see is that the new fatty acid that will be formed is not having it is having one carbon atom less. This was the original. Now the new fatty acid is not having CH2, so one carbon atom has been removed, and in this way the process can keep on repeating, right? So this is alpha oxidation, right? This is very simple. You can just remember it that there are two processes: decarboxylation, where this carboxyl group is removed, and oxidation, where dehydrogenase enzyme act with NAD to give us new fatty acid, right? So new fatty acid will be oxidized again and again till it becomes 12 carbon atom. So the end is up to 12 carbon atom. It will only reduce up to 12 carbon atom, and this 12 carbon atoms can then later on go into beta oxidation process, and there it can get reduced to 2 carbon atoms, right? So this is alpha oxidation, and we first understood beta oxidation so that you can know that in compounds where beta oxidation cannot take place because of branching, alpha oxidation takes place, right? So this happens in several of the plant systems. Okay, so that is it about beta and alpha oxidation, which is your breakdown of fatty acids. And I know this is a bit hard topic, but I hope I was able to make you understand this. But if in any case you have any doubt, you can feel free to ask me, right? I'll be back with a new topic. Till then, please clear your doubts. Thank you.